In today's video, we're going to be looking at who I think is going to be winning WWE Championship Gold for the first time in 2025. And we're specifically talking about first-timers here, and we're going to break it through divisions, tag team, mid-card, and main event scene. So the people that I say are going to win World Gold have never won World Gold. I hope you understand what I'm telling you here. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And don't forget to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Over there, we actually upload more than we upload on YouTube, if you can believe that. Today, we just uploaded our watch along of Josh Briggs, Obafemi, and Dijak at NXT Stand and Deliver, but we also upload our Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, and so much more over there. Go check it out. Patreon.com/SantiZap. Link in the description, link in the pinned comment. We would appreciate your support. But let's jump into the video. Let's start things off by talking about the tag team division and who I think is going to be getting their first ever taste of main roster tag team championship gold in 2025. And let's start off by talking about the men, because the men's tag team scene going into 2025 is in a really strong position, in a much better position where they were compared to at this same time last year, where the titles were unified and rarely getting defended. Because unlike the women's tag team sets of championships, we have two sets of tag team championships, which in theory, again, in theory, should allow for more tag teams to win gold throughout 2025. The other reason why the tag team division for the men is in such a great spot is because we have longer run times for both Raw and SmackDown, which should allow the WWE to explore more narratives with the tag team division, give us more feuds, more characters, more matches, which again should in turn give us more tag team wrestling, which should give us more tag team champions. And I do believe that one of the beneficiaries of the extended runtime and the given tender love and care to the tag team division is going to be pretty deadly. I feel really confident that they're going to be winning their first set of tag team championship gold in the main roster in 2025. Yes, they've been tag team champions down in NXT, and I thought that they were excellent tag team champions in NXT. I love a tag team that actually has a tag team identity. And yeah, their tag team identity is goofy, but it works nonetheless, because one of the problems with tag team champions that we've gotten on the main roster over the last couple of years is that they don't have a tag team identity. So they take the tag titles out of the tag team division altogether, just like the Judgment Day did with Finn Balor and JD McDonough, as well as Finn Balor and Damian Priest. But if you give the tag titles to two guys that are career tag team dudes, they're going to help elevate the actual tag team division on Friday Night SmackDown. On top of that, when you look at the landscape of narrative on Friday Night SmackDown when it comes to the tag team, it all goes through pretty deadly. Every story happening in the tag team division is because of these guys. I feel like this is the year that you gotta give these two guys tag team championship gold, and I feel like it would be a fantastic choice. I'm going into a different realm here. I'm thinking that in 2025, we get Fraxium getting called up. If you don't know who they are, in my opinion, they might be the best tag team in the WWE, period. I firmly believe that they're the greatest NXT tag team champions of all time, and that's saying a lot because the NXT tag team division throughout the years has been ridiculously stacked. So to say that they are the best of the incredibly stacked NXT tag team, like legendary roster that there's been, that's saying a lot. And when they get called up, I hope sincerely that they get called up as a tag team so that they can help boost the tag team division. And I hope that they win tag team gold quickly, just like how Motor City Machine Guns did. We have the draft portal. We likely have the NXT call-ups that tend to happen usually after WrestleMania. So there's plenty of opportunities for both of these guys to get called up. I also am seeing their NXT careers starting to sunset. So to me, they are prime candidates for getting called up in 2025. And when they do, I sincerely hope that they win tag team championship gold and dazzle everyone that is a fan of the main roster, because these two guys are absolutely freaking amazing. When it comes to the women, this is so much harder because there are very few tag teams in the women's division. And the ones that do exist have already won tag team championship gold. Like, for example, Unholy Union has already won tag team championship gold. We've already had, for example, combinations of Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, and Naomi win tag team championship gold. We've already had the Party Girls win tag team championship gold. So there really isn't much to pick from unless I decide to to just pick two random people and put them together in a tag team, which seems to be a pretty common formula in the women's tag team scene, which is not what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with a traditional tag team. I'm going to go with the girls from Metaphor in Jakara and Lash Legend. They are deep in the tag team division on NXT. They were deep in the tag team division when they were briefly called up to the main roster, and they actually just recently won a #1 contendership tournament on NXT to get another crack at the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. And I wouldn't be surprised with how the storyline is developing with Bianca, Naomi, and Jade Cargill. I wouldn't be surprised if these two end up winning the tag titles. Another reason why I wouldn't be surprised that a team from NXT would win the tag team titles is because there are so many women in NXT that I really believe that you can have a really healthy tag team division down there as well. On top of that, the WWE just introduced 2 mid-card belts in the women's division, and the WWE tag team titles was kind of playing the mid-card title role for the women's division, and it doesn't have to play that anymore. It can go to a team from NXT and stay down there for a while. And now that that's the case, I'm gonna give it to a team from NXT. I'm gonna say that it's gonna be Jakara and Lash Legend that are going to be first ever tag team champions on the main roster, even though they're gonna be on NXT. I don't know. Now let's talk about Midcard Championship Gold. And there's more to talk about this year because we have brand new mid-card belts in the women's division to talk about in the US title and the Intercontinental Championship. But let's talk about the men. And I do believe that we're going to be getting multiple mid-card champions in 2025 across both the men's Intercontinental and US title. We've seen the WWE play a bit more fast and loose with these mid-card titles recently, with the Intercontinental Championship changing hands multiple times, a handful of times in 2024. And we're recently now seeing it with the US Championship bouncing from Logan Paul to LA Knight to Shinsuke Nakamura, all within the span of about 5 months. The difficulty here was finding a first ever mid-card champion, because there's a lot of strong candidates that have already won a mid-card championship before, so they really weren't eligible for this video. So we had to talk about people that have never won singles gold at all in the mid-card, and that starts with Ludwig Kaiser. Ludwig Kaiser is improving his stock every single week that he's on television, every single week that he has a match. This is a guy that I think everyone agrees is pegged for future stardom, maybe even in the main event. But it starts with the mid-card, and we're starting to see the ball slowly roll down the hill for Ludwig Kaiser. He's perennially involved in the mid-card scene with the Intercontinental Championship picture, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's an Intercontinental Champion before the summer, probably winning it from Sheamus, who beats Braun Breaker. If the WWE is going to have more PLEs in Europe, I'm honestly betting that they would have Ludwig Kaiser versus Sheamus at one of those European PLEs and give Ludwig Kaiser the championship at one of those shows. The other guy is Carmelo Hayes. This is a guy that has absolutely earned a mid-card championship. He had an excellent run in the mid-card US championship picture in 2024. A lot of people love Carmelo Hayes' work, but his character development has also been spot on in 2024. And going into 2025, he has the eyes of a lot of people as somebody that could win major singles accolades, not just mid-card gold, but like Money in the Bank and maybe even King of the Ring. So Carmelo Hayes' stock is very high at the moment, even though he's off the back of losing that US title picture that he was involved in with LA Knight. But when I look at the mid-carders, the ones that could truly benefit from winning a mid-card title, Carmelo Hayes is literally at the top of this list. This is a guy that could be a more traditional WWE superstar in the sense that they can go from mid-card to world title, really use that Intercontinental or US title win to catapult themselves later on down the line to maybe get into the main event picture like Carmelo Hayes probably should. I just have a vision of him having the US title and running around with the Mr. Money in the Bank briefcase. I see it like clear as day, and I think this is the year that they do it. For the women, we have women's mid-card titles to actually talk about, which is so refreshing to have the women's mid and lower card actually have something to vie for, as opposed to just waiting for their turn if it ever comes for a world championship opportunity, or just having matches for the sake of having matches. So this is going to be a great year for women's mid-card wrestling, and I feel like the way to do this is to give us multiple champions in 2025. I like Candice LeRae. I don't feel like this is a lock like a couple of the other ones that I've talked talked about here, but we're seeing Candice LeRae get more and more and more TV time. She's the Speed Champion. I know that no one gives a damn about the Speed Championship, but clearly somebody at the WWE trusts Candice LeRae, both from an in-ring perspective, from a character perspective, and from her ability to try and elevate a championship like the Speed title. On top of that, we're seeing her get way more TV time. She's a veteran that's incredibly crafty and clean in the ring. She can be a workhorse, and she is the perfect type of person to win a mid-card belt. So I'm going to say Candice LeRae, specifically the US Championship. The other one is Zelina Vega. Zelina Vega is one of those individuals that everyone has just wished the best for. Everybody wants Zelina Vega to win everything. They've wanted her to win championship gold. It doesn't happen. They want her to win Money in the Bank. It doesn't happen. But now that we have the mid-card belts, now you can reward the workhorses that you've had for the better part of a decade in the WWE, tearing it up, and they've been tearing it up for no rewards. And now that you have a reward, you should reward one of those people that's been grinding in the mid-card scene for so long in Zelina Vega. I love the idea of giving the Women's Intercontinental Championship to Zelina Vega so that she can demonstrate to the higher brass, to the world, to fans, that she should absolutely be considered for a future world championship down the line. Now let's talk about main event gold. And this is where things don't tend to shift anywhere near as much as the other divisions. But in recent memory, with the women's championships and the big gold belt, we have seen quite a bit of shifting. Not as much in the Undisputed Championship picture, but nonetheless, we are seeing more shifting of championship victories in the main event scene, more than we've seen likely in the past like 4 or 5 years, where Roman Reigns was the only champion and never lost the damn thing. But let's start with the women. And this was a little bit harder than I was anticipating, because there aren't too many like really viable future women's world champions, let alone women's world champions that would be ready for 2025, that haven't already won a women's world championship. Because remember, for this, I'm only picking women or men that haven't won a respective world championship yet. So with the women, I have to start off maybe with the most obvious one, which is Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill is going to win women's gold, and she's going to win a lot of it. And I think it starts in 2025. 2024 was like the prototype year for Jade Cargill, kind of testing out the new ride to see if it can go, if it can step up to some of the bigger names in the women's division without putting her in super high pressure positions like women's championship gold. But I feel like now you have to unleash the hound. Now you have to let Jade Cargill be the thing that she was signed to be, which is a monster in the women's main event scene. I feel like 2025 is the year that we get, one, a heel Jade Cargill when she returns from this injury, and two, an incredibly dominant Jade Cargill in the main event scene. Frankly, I would have her as the absolute favorite right now to win the Queen of the Ring tournament if they decide to do it again. And by winning the Queen of the Ring, she's going to go to SummerSlam, the first ever 2-night SummerSlam, and win championship gold there. And I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't lose it for a very long time. But you just can't have Jade Cargill in the tag team division again for an entire year. We could look at Jade Cargill maybe in the women's mid-card, but that's basically where she's been. Again, we've said this before, the women's tag team championships were basically the mid-card championships of the women's roster. But now that we got mid-card titles, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to start to slowly bring and dial down the women's tag team picture. And then that leaves the question, if she's no longer in the women's tag team division, what's the best thing to do with her? Well, it's the main event scene. She's going to win gold in 2025. The other one is Lyra Valkyria. And I'm kind of thinking of this in the same way of like an old school intercontinental champion that would go from intercontinental champion to the world title. Think, for example, Shawn Michaels. I'm not saying that she's like a Shawn Michaels, by the way. Think of like a Randy Orton. When they would win the Intercontinental Championship, it was a matter of time until they eventually got moved up to the main event scene to win major gold. And I feel like that could be the case for Lyra Valkyria. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Lyra Valkyria wins a women's world championship, maybe wins it off of a Becky Lynch, kind of like how she won the NXT championship all of those months ago. But when I think of somebody that is ready to make a leap from mid-card to main event, it is Lyra Valkyria. I see this more than I see it for Chelsea Green, frankly. And if you want to make fans care about who the next Intercontinental Intercontinental or the next US champion is, you need to make these leaps. They did it with Gunther. They're probably going to do it with Braun Breaker. You need to make us believe that whoever wins those women's Intercontinental or US championship belts, that they're poised for a big push somewhere down the line. It just is a matter of, will we have enough time in the year to make the push from Intercontinental champion to world champion before 2025 ends? I think it's going to be tight, but I think it's possible for. And now the men. I'm going to keep this one really simple. I'm also going to mention the fact that this was also kind of difficult because those that are poised to win championship gold in 2025 have already won championship gold in 2025. So let's go down the route of Braun Breaker. We've talked about this before already. We just did with Lyra Valkyria, going from the IC to the world title. Before Braun Breaker, Gunther did it, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next person in line to make that leap is Braun Breaker. We've already also seen a face-off, a quick one between Braun Breaker and Gunther, and I don't believe that that's going to be a face-off that never gets paid off. I feel like eventually it will. We will get Braun Breaker versus Gunther in 2025, and when we do, Braun Breaker will win the World Heavyweight Championship in 2025. We all know that he's going to win a ton of gold throughout his career, so let's start it this year. So many people are going to be so excited for this. I have so much hope and hype in 2025 for Jey Uso. I don't know that he's going to win necessarily as early as Saturday night's main event, but with his popularity being as high as it is, I have a hard time seeing how WWE doesn't finally pull the trigger on him. They pulled the trigger on him last year on a mid-card belt, and I think 2025 might be the year that main event Jey Uso is actually at the top of the main event scene. Just look at how they treated him, for example, at War Games, where he was part of a team with Roman and CM Punk, two of the biggest names that this industry has ever seen, and he got the last entrance. That just goes to show how high his stock is within WWE and with the fans themselves. And with him already in 2025 picking up major victories against the likes of Drew freaking McIntyre, who was on the roll of his life, and already being positioned for a championship match against Gunther, I feel like the sky's the limit in 2025 for Jey Uso. This could be his year, finally. All right, folks, this is your opportunity to tell me your candidates in the comment section because there are more to potentially talk about. So let me know. But that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.